the title of it alone is going to give it away, but let's answer the big question. Let's say you take a running back in the first round like you probably will. Who are you taking in the second round, Mike Evans or Chris Godwin? What's up, Fackers? We are back with our Fantasy and Chill 101, counting down the top 101 fantasy football players for the 2020 season. Number 19 on our countdown is the wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Chris Godwin. He is our 7th ranked wide receiver. Last year he finished... Britt, what did he finish last year?
Number 2, I believe.
Number 2. Ask Britt. Did you know Britt drafted him?
Britt drafted Chris Godwin
him in the 6th round last year. What a pick.
Yeah,
he had 86 catches for 1,333 yards and 9 touchdowns on 120 targets. He scored 241.1 fantasy points, an average of 17.2 points per game. All right, so obviously a career year last year for Chris Godwin. He was top 10 in snaps, routes run, yards, and touchdowns. Top 10 across the board and everything. He was first in the NFL in first down rate, 50%. So 50% of his catches resulted in a first down. Big middle of the field guy. And as we know, in Tampa, they have a new QB this year. It is Tom Brady. He is the GOAT. I just don't know if he's the GOAT in fantasy as much as Jameis Winston was closer to that. So we'll see how that kind of works out for Godwin. I said we'll talk about Godwin, and then I'll interject later with Evans, and then we can compare them.
Oh, yeah, he did say that. Okay. I love Godwin. I mean, obviously, he was a stud for me last year, but, I mean, he's getting a better quarterback, a more accurate quarterback, let's face it. The only thing that worries me a little bit is if the game script, I guess we're bringing that word back.
Ooh, that's a buzzword from, like, 2018. Deep reach.
Like, I don't see their defense taking a huge step forward, but Tom Brady's not going to turn the ball over. How many picks did Jameis have last year? About 30?
30 on the dot.
Okay, yeah. Quite a few, and I mean, basically he is giving the team the other ball. That's what an interception is. But I still like Godwin going forward. Edelman had that chemistry with Brady. I think Godwin's going to have the chemistry right off the bat with him, even though there's not really a training camp and everything. But Godwin is a precise route runner. He's going to be there. That's what makes him so successful, and he gets open. And he did give Tom his number 12 number. So he's got Tom's respect already.
He's got the karma going for him then.
You brought up Edelman. I was going to mention how Godwin's more of a possession, middle of the field, high target guy, which is what basically Tom Brady has single-handedly made Edelman that kind of elite player over the last 10 years. And Godwin, I mean, he's more athletic. He's probably a better player than Edelman will ever be. Is that fair?
You just kind of laughed there for a second.
I'm just kidding.
I don't know what was going through your head there for a second. Let's also bring up Bruce Arians. We kind of saw it last year too. Arians coming from the Cardinals. Who was a beast with the Cardinals in the slot? One, Larry Fitzgerald.
Yes.
And Arians' first year in Tampa. Was that his first year in Tampa last year? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, first year in Tampa, and Godwin, had a great year. Godwin had a decent 2018 year too, but nothing compared to his 2019.
He had enough in 2018 to where he was called like a breakout guy, but nobody saw him finishing number 2. That was crazy. But people did see an increase in volume and the breakout coming. It's just, I mean, he was, like you said, number 2. He's the best. Besides Michael Thomas, he was the best fantasy receiver.
Yeah, and let's get on to Evans real quick because I have about both of them.
So basically, it comes down to both of these guys. They're ranked back to back for us. Number 18 on our countdown is wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mike Evans. He is our 6th ranked wide receiver. Last year he finished as wide receiver number 12. He had 67 catches for 1,157 yards and 8 touchdowns on 115 targets. He scored 206.2 fantasy points, an average of 15.9 points per game. Couple of points Britt kind of talked about earlier. With Tom Brady coming in, you're getting a much improved efficiency out of the quarterback situation. Should be some more catchable balls. Mike Evans last year, even though he finished number 12, 53% of his total points came over the span of 3 weeks. He had 3 enormous weeks last year where he did most of his damage.
Yeah.
And we know that Mike Evans is going to get Well, with Gronk coming in at a little bit, but he'll get the majority of the goal line work if you're just talking about the two receivers. He's a red zone monster. He's a guy you throw up balls in the end zone. He's 6'5". Gronk,
Yes.
I personally think Gronk is going to get some red zone looks too.
No, he will.
But Mike Evans is definitely ahead of Chris Godwin in the red zone department.
Yes, and
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I mean, yeah, Evans is just still is going to be a monster in the red zone, but we wouldn't consider Edelman like a red zone threat, and Edelman had, you just remember those slant routes he'd run right across the middle, and just Brady would just dump it over the line and he'd get touchdowns. So I could see Godwin being just as good as Evans, if not. I mean, they both scored close to 9 touchdowns.
Talk about what you wanted to talk about, Britt.
okay, well, let me get to this first. I mean, Evans has never played less than 13 games. He is super durable, never had less than about 120 targets. So, I mean, the dude's going to eat, like, regardless. Like, and he's a touchdown machine. He's finished top 10 4 out of his 6 seasons. So, I mean, like, he has that number 1 overall potential easily.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing is, it's the too many mouths to feed argument. And Brady is probably going to throw 25 to 30 touchdowns, okay?
Damn.
If you divvy, I mean, that's average for him. I think the most he's thrown in the season is like 36, 37. But
Well,
if you
it's
average,
definitely 49 and 50 when he broke the all-time record.
oh, hold on. Or recently, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was back in 07.
Yeah, okay, shit. Yeah, that was a long time ago. But, I mean, yeah, he could jump back up to 40, 45 touchdowns. But if you divvy that out, like, I just don't think they're going to be like, dude, you have Evans, Godwin, Gronkowski, OJ Howard is still there. And, I mean, you have Keyshawn Vaughn and Ronald Jones out of the backfield. Like, you're basically banking on Tom Brady still being all there, having a MVP year to support Godwin and Evans. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just feel like they both have to take a little bit of a step back because Brady's not that risk taker. He's not going to be slinging the ball down the field.
I don't know. I just want to bust a myth real quick and kind of add to that point. People thought like Brady's not going to throw the ball a lot, but I think Tampa Bay was like maybe number 1 or 2 last year in the league in passes per game. New England wasn't far behind them. I think New England was top 5 too. But New England threw the ball quite a bit last year.
He had 613 attempts last year, Brady did.
Yeah, and that was, I think, only like 6 behind Winston.
To the point, I think Britt was saying is how many of those passes were to the running back position, the guys we're not talking about.
Yeah, that's very
Tom Brady's a big dump-off guy.
No, yeah, he is. But a lot of people think like, they think, when they think of Tom Brady, they're like, oh, he's not throwing the ball that much because he's old. They're just running the ball, using their defense. But Tom Brady, he did drop back and pass it a few times.
He did. He's just his yards per attempt is probably way toward the bottom of the NFL.
His yards per, I actually looked at that too because I wanted to compare it to Winston. Winston was like 13 point something, and Tom Brady was like 10.
Well, I have his yards per attempt right here at 6.6.
Yeah,
maybe I was looking at.
That sounds more like it.
You
were probably looking at yards per completion.
Yeah, that's what it was.
That's the only knock on Evans. But I mean, also Tom Brady had Randy Moss at one point. That was a long time ago. But how many touchdowns did Randy Moss have? Like 19, something crazy.
Like 23,
20? Yeah, something insane. Like, I mean, he does have that toy on the side. Like Evans will just go up and get it every time. And I mean, I can easily see that happening also. But it's going to be tough. I'm happy with either one. They're mostly going in the second round. I think
and they're going basically right next to each other.
Okay, let's just say you took Michael Thomas in the first round and you wanted to go wide receiver. Would you go with the Godwin stability or Evans upside? I feel like that's the question here.
I'd go with Evans upside because Michael Thomas is the ultimate.
That is very true. So maybe if you went Tyreek Hill and Godwin, kind of balancing. If you go wide receiver, I mean, obviously.
Yeah, but I wouldn't recommend going wide receiver. But if you were going to do that, yeah, those two scenarios, maybe you mix and match like that. So
this might be the year.
Basically, we got probably about a minute. We'll wrap this up. But the whole video, the title of it alone is going to give it away. But let's answer the big question. Let's say you take a running back in the first round like you probably will. Who are you taking in the second round, Mike Evans or Chris Godwin?
In a vacuum, because people that are watching this video, they don't know what kind of team they're going to have right now at this point.
That's true.
So
That's true.
In a vacuum,
okay. How about this? You had the number 3 pick and you took Ezekiel Elliott. You have number 18 and both these guys are there. Who you take?
Yes, very reasonable situation.
So I asked you the question. Who you take?
Oh, I thought you were talking to that. Godwin is my boy, but man, that was his one breakout year. I'm gonna go with Evans here.
I also am going to go with Mike Evans. I think
I was not expecting that.
You're talking about stability with Chris Godwin, but Evans is pretty damn stable too and consistent. We said some of his games were huge, but he catches the deep ball. He catches the jump ball. He's going to most likely, even though Godwin had more touchdowns last year, Evans probably will have more touchdowns this year.
Wait, and let me ask one question too. Was Godwin's success a factor of Evans drawing the better safety and corners?
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? Like,
I think
now that
absolutely.
they're going to be keying on Godwin, like, does Evans have a breakout? Like,
Godwin's in the slot though. You don't put your number one cornerbacks on a slot receiver.
Well, no, but I'm saying, no. My point is Evans drawing more attention and giving Godwin. You know what I'm saying? Like, there were a few plays last year with the Saints. I remember specifically, Godwin's just running free right down the middle.
Yeah,
like no one's even on him.
Because I mean, Lattimore, Bradbury on the Panthers, if he's still there, they're going to be on Evans. They're not moving into the slot to guard
over the middle will be more of a safety who's probably shading towards.
Yeah, so I still expect the same thing.
Yeah.
But so Britt says Evans. I say Mike Evans.
Matt, I'm going Godwin. I thought I could, agree with Britt for once, but y'all talk about Evans being this deep threat. Brady, like he people are under, like, Brady can still throw the ball deep. All right, he's old, but we're over
43.
Like, I think his deep ball is fine.
Yeah, his deep ball is fine. People are overreacting and all that. But
I agree.
The thing is, Brady doesn't take risk like Winston did. Winston,
I think he will though when he has a guy like Mike Evans.
Winston, it doesn't matter who would throw the ball.
Like Britt just said, I'm not saying that Mike Evans is going to have a Randy Moss year because Randy Moss probably had the best season ever.
That was also like 13 years ago.
I know. But I'm saying when he has a guy that he trusts like that knows is going to go up and get the ball, he's more like, who did he have last year to even throw the ball to?
Brady will pick his spots though. When I have a Mike Evans guy, I want a Winston as my quarterback because he doesn't give a shit. It's like when you have Fitzpatrick. He'll throw it up even if there's triple coverage on him and give him a chance.
I don't think anybody's arguing that they're in a better situation this year, fantasy-wise, with Brady than Winston. I think we all agree they were better off with Winston fantasy-wise. But with working with Brady, I think Brady will take a little bit more risk knowing that he has a guy like Evans to catch the ball.
Hey, and one more thing. Bucs have 5 primetime games this year.
We didn't ask about the schedule.
The schedule,
so,
go for it.
If you're trying to watch some games in prime time, baby, you draft the Bucs.
Let's mention one more thing about the Bucs. You just kind of reminded me, but you should know if you play a type of season where your playoffs start week 13, the bye weeks are different this year in the NFL. Week 13, Panthers and Buccaneers are on a bye week. If you have a Panther or a Buccaneer on your team, they will not be available week 13. So just make sure and check your playoff settings, your scheduling, see how that works out. Not saying, I don't know if it would necessarily hinder me to draft one of them because you're still going to have an advantage over other teams in the regular season. You get all your starters for one more game, whereas other people have to rest everybody.
Yeah, you still have to make the playoffs.
You still have to make the playoffs to get in. But if you did make the playoffs, these two guys, and we said Panthers, and so McCaffrey, like, that's going to be your best player sitting out first week of playoffs. DJ Moore. Yeah, DJ, like, it's going to suck. But like Matt said, you got to make the playoffs, and you will have that slight advantage over other teams in that regard. So.
Yeah. This is the one time where I actually might factor in bye weeks a little bit to my draft style. Usually I don't pay attention to it at all.
Saying that, like I said, it wouldn't hinder me from drafting one of McCaffrey, Evans, Godwin, DJ Moore. But I probably wouldn't put more than one on the same team because then you're really fucked.
Exactly.
All right, so wrapping it up, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, they are number 6 and 7 wide receiver, number 17 and 18 overall. We out.
Yeah.
We out.